Welcome back to Studio 5. If you buy into the commercials and shows you see on TV, you just might start to believe that fathers are weak, that they are wishy-washy, and that the women they live with are, well, bossy know-it-alls. Family therapist Julie Hanks says the way to reverse this cultural current lies with the attitude of women who need to get on board and help their man lean in to fatherhood. Let's identify this problem. What are you seeing?
Okay. Well, a lot of times I hear women complain that their husbands aren't as engaged in parenting as they would like, and yet women do subtle things sometimes that undermine their husband's engagement in family life, and they don't even know it.
So if we consider their desire for dad to be engaged, that's the goal. What's the best way, do you think, for women to achieve that goal?
Well, I think there are a few things we can do. I think one is to just to start out as early as possible expecting it. Expecting, like, we're a team here. We're a team in everything we do. So expect that participation, and instead of expecting him to be incompetent like some of the media.
So if you haven't set that standard early, maybe you're 10, 20 years into a marriage and you're still frustrated with the dynamic, is it too late?
It's not too late. And there are some other things that we're going to talk about that you can do. The second is discuss the details about your expectations. So what would you like to have happen now? Just recently, this has been a big theme for me in my life because I tend to lean into everything I do, which means my husband needs to lean in more at home. And so recently I just said, I am so tired by the end of the day. If you will do bedtime for the summer, like that, I'll do everything else, but if you could do bedtime, like that would be great.
You just stated it specifically.
He's like, okay, because he knows I've been leaning in a lot of other areas. And so just ask for what you want and, work it out together. I remember one Sunday, my son, he's like, hey, Dad, will you iron my shirt? We go to church every Sunday, and I was in the laundry room. I said, here, I'll iron it, Owen. He's like, moms don't iron. Like, that was the silliest thing he'd ever heard, because in my family, that's something that Dad does. And so we've just negotiated, and it's fluid. But talk about the expectations. Don't just shift and think, oh, he doesn't participate in helping, raising the kids. And so you have that dialogue. In detail, though. In detail,
that's important. I love that we're lifting the Sheryl Sandberg phrase of lean in and applying it to this topic, because there's obviously a visual image that comes to mind when you think about leaning in.
Leaning in, instead of leaning back.
And as you kind of described it, in a relationship, is it fair to say if one leans in, that almost forces someone to lean out? I mean, there's a balancing act that has to happen.
Right, because if you lean in, both lean in, you'll smack into each other. So you have to kind of find that balance. But one thing that's so important, and that we're not even aware of sometimes, are the words that we use.
Like what?
So, this one drives me crazy. My husband's babysitting tonight. I'm like, really? Are you paying him? Like, did you book him ahead of time? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, dads don't babysit their own kids. That's what the neighbor does, and you pay them money to do it. They're his kids. He's taking care of the kids, like you would do.
Right? I read you also take issue with the word help.
Help.
Will you help?
And my husband catches me on this. I'm like, oh, thanks, thanks for helping with dinner. He's like, I'm helping our family. And I was like, oh, burn, got it. Also, my versus ours, using inclusive language. Our child, our baby, instead of my baby, shows that, like, we're a partnership in raising the children.
So can the subtle wordplay make a difference in the big picture? Yeah,
it does. And the words we use help show how we represent it in our mind. And so if we're using those words, we're probably thinking about it that way. And so by saying ours, we're thinking, okay, more inclusive, we're in this together.
A lot of times you and I sit here chatting about female behavior, and we come back to the word control a lot. Women like to have control, and you say that can be harmful. Even if you are wanting your husband to step in more, you don't oftentimes let him do that.
Exactly, and I hear a lot of men in my therapy practice say this. So my wife, feels like my mom sometimes, my wife wants me to participate, but when I do, then she tells me how to parent, or how to load the dishwasher, or how to, change a diaper. So men in general want to feel competent, and when you give unsolicited advice, it feels like they're not doing it right, and they will stop doing it because they need to feel competent. And so I think that's a huge problem, Brooke, that women don't realize, that when you go in, oh, do it this way, and you say, well, why are you doing it that way? That feels like criticism, and that they're not good enough, and they will stop participating because they don't want to feel that way.
My sister encountered this in her kindergarten class last year. A little girl came to school with braids the first day. They turned into frizz braids the next day. And the third day was a hat. And a little girl said, my daddy did my hair today and said, I look beautiful. I mean, there's a standard that you come to accept when you're turning chores over to someone who might not do it your way.
And I think it's important for women, moms, to realize there's no right way.
Yeah.
Like, we've kind of decided, our way, this is the way that works, our way is right. No. That's not true. Very few things are like right and wrong.
And I remember a conversation we had, I think it was a year ago, talking about what women can actually learn from the way men parent.
Right, not be so obsessed about how their little girl's hair looks.
Right, little kickback. Who cares? Little
right, relax. Let the kids, you know, roam free a little bit more and not be so anxious about appearance or behavior as a reflection.
This last point is a big one, Julie, and I think it's so subtle sometimes in our culture, in our media, that we don't even realize we're doing it. And if you pointed out to women, they'd be horrified.
Right.
But you are making the point that women sometimes talk negatively about their spouse, about their husband.
Right, and mostly in jest. I mean, some people, you know, my husband's blah blah blah, but like, oh, I would never leave him alone with the kids all day, or oh, I could never take a girls' trip because, you know, he would never survive. Really? Like, we're talking about an adult man cannot handle being a parent? I mean, that is so condescending, and I think we say it as women to make ourselves feel like what we're doing is so valuable, but I don't think that's the way to do it. What we do as moms is valuable, but that we don't need to put down our spouse in order to do that. And I think it's really damaging and kind of plays into that stereotype of, oh, you know, dads, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, these are competent men, you know.
Yeah.
Come on, give them a little credit.
Well, that's a huge aha. We would always tell our children, you don't need to put someone down to feel good about yourself.
But we do it.
There you go.
You know, joking, but there's always truth in jest. So I just would say, let's watch that and don't say those negative things even in jest. And maybe it's true, but it's only true because he hasn't had that opportunity to develop the skill like mom has.
So give him a chance. Lean out, let him lean in.
Yes.
I love that, Julie. Thank you so much. You offer professional advice on all sorts of topics. How can viewers connect with you?
WasatchFamilyTherapy.com.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brooke.